Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, I'm going to be going over the sensitivity, settings, and custom binds that I'm currently using in Fortnite. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for this video for a while now, and I actually would have released it a lot earlier, but I kinda got cheated. I always like to do sensitivity updates right before the start of a new season, and as you guys probably know, Fortnite delayed the upcoming season like 3 different times, so this video also got delayed with it. But it is what it is, and it's not really a big deal at the end of the day, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so we're going to start off here with sensitivity, and since it's all the way at the bottom, I'll just start off here by saying that I use linear and not exponential. So starting off with the look sensitivity section, I'm currently using 38% for horizontal look speed and 36% for vertical look speed. I have 0% for both the horizontal and vertical boosts, a 0-second turning boost ramp time, and I have instant boost when building turned off. So look sensitivity obviously refers to your sensitivity whenever you aren't ADSing. So this section is mostly for shotgun and SMG fights. When I first switched to linear, I really struggled with the lack of aim acceleration compared to when I played on Legacy, so I actually started on horizontal and vertical values that were even lower than this. But as I became more and more comfortable, I started to increase those values because, as I've mentioned before, increasing your sensitivity is kinda meta right now for controller players. Now, do I consider 38%, 36% high at all? No, absolutely not. I'm someone who's always preferred a lower sensitivity, but I still think it's high enough to where you can track jumping and strafing enemies at point blank range, which is really important, and at the same time, I feel super in control of my aim in a way that I didn't when I tried out higher values. Now, for you guys on console, I always caution you to be wary about copying sensitivity values from PC on controller players, because it's a lot harder to control higher sensitivities on 60 FPS. But since my base values are so low, I feel like it would be perfect for console players especially. The reason for using 0% boosts is honestly because that's what every good player uses. Pretty much the whole purpose of playing on linear is to have full control over your crosshair movement with no aim acceleration, so if you don't use 0% boosts, that kinda defeats the whole purpose, and at that point, I'd honestly recommend just switching to exponential. The next sensitivity category here is ADS sensitivity, which is obviously your sensitivity whenever you aim down sights. So in this section, I'm using 8% for both horizontal and vertical sensitivity, and just like in the last section, no boost here either. So I think most people would agree that medium to long range AR aim is actually the worst part of playing on linear. You can definitely still laser people on occasion, don't get me wrong, but compared to exponential and especially Legacy, it's a little bit harder to consistently hit those shots on linear. So one of the ways that I try to compensate for that is by using a slightly lower ADS sensitivity than most people. Now honestly, it really isn't that much lower. When I made a video about a month ago looking at the sensitivity of various controller pros, I noticed that almost all of them were in that 8 to 12% range for their ADS sensitivity. So even though 8 is definitely on the lower end, I don't think anyone will think it's too low. And then when it comes to boosts, same deal as in the non-ADS section. The boosts just don't really mix well with linear, so almost nobody uses them here either. The next section is look dampening time, and I also have this on 0. This is another setting that basically determines how much aim acceleration you have, and hopefully by this point in the video, I've made it clear that on linear, that's not really something you want. Pretty much every linear pro uses 0 here. For a little, I did have it on like 0.05 just to ease the transition from Legacy to linear, but as I got more used to it, I moved it down to 0 and haven't really looked back since then. For my move and look stick dead zone, I use 12% for both, both, I'm a firm believer that when it comes to picking your dead zone, it's really as simple as this. You want to go as low as possible, but not too low to where you get stick drift. Each controller is different depending on how much you've used it and how worn the thumbsticks actually are. Most controllers will start having stick drift issues at about 8 to 10% dead zone, but I use 12% just to be a little on the cautious side since my controllers seem to wear down really quickly. And then finally we have the building and editing sensitivity multiplier, and I use 2.0 for both. Now, since these are a multiplier of your look sensitivity and I use low values for that, 2.0 for building and editing is honestly kinda low as well. I know some controller pros will use like 45 to 50 look sense, and then they'll have their building and editing multiplier all the way up at like 2.7 or 2.8. But for me personally, I prioritize efficiency and not messing up over raw speed, and unless you have great mechanics, I'd honestly recommend you do the same. And it's not like 2.0 is super low, I think it's definitely fast enough for both building and editing in most situations. So that covers everything you need to know about my sensitivity. Now let's get into the settings, and we'll just go page by page and quickly discuss any important ones. So on this first page, I have brightness at 105%. I don't use any colorblind settings on PC, but on the rare occasion when I play console, I use Tritanope with 7 strength, and then I have motion blur off. Also, make sure that you actually set your safe zone to the edges of your TV screen, because if you don't, stuff like the map will be too close to the center of your screen when it should be all the way in the top right corner. On the next page, this is where most of the important things are located. In the movement section, I have toggle sprint off, sprint by default on, sprint cancels reloading off, and auto open doors on. Sprint by default is a setting that you should definitely be using at this point, and I also really like auto open doors, so when you accidentally make a door edit on a wall, you can just run right through it. In the combat section, the two most important ones are hold to swap pickup, and I guess also auto sort consumables to the right. Hold to swap pickup allows you to swap a weapon in your hand for one on the ground without opening your inventory, even if your inventory isn't actually full, and it's really helpful, especially in the beginning of games when you don't really have time to rearrange everything. Then in these final few sections, obviously you want to have reset building choice and turbo building set to on. I use confirm edit on release, and I've talked multiple times before about how much I like it. And then the other setting here I would recommend using is tap to search/interact. It basically gives you the ability to drop stuff and mess with your inventory whenever you're reviving or rebooting someone. In this next section, pretty much all of this is self-explanatory, but as I've mentioned before, you want to use a HUD scale lower than 100%. If you use 100%, things like your map and inventory will be pretty big and actually block your vision a fair bit. So unless you play on like a super small TV, just bump it down a bit to the 85 to 90 range. Then here's some more settings. The two most important ones are Builder Pro builds immediately, which you definitely want to have on, and then vibration, which you ideally want to have off. Edit hold time may look important, but it actually doesn't matter at all as long as your edit button is anything other than B/circle. Then the final setting section is sound, and I have both 3D headphones and visualized sound effects turned off. And now, last but not least, let's just quickly run through my custom binds. I changed these towards the beginning of Chapter 2 Season 1 and have actually kept them the same since then. So starting off with the combat controls section, the important binds here are left stick edit, Y/triangle for toggle pickaxe, and then A for jump, but I have that bound to a paddle. Probably should have mentioned that at the beginning, but I use one lower left paddle on my Xbox Elite controller. So pretty standard stuff here, honestly. I think left stick is by far the most common edit bind for controller players, and that's why it's so important that you use sprint by default, because if you don't, you can't use left stick edit. Now, for the build control section, honestly, most of this stuff is very unimportant. The only one that really ever matters is trap pick and place, which I have bound to X/square, anywhere, but since there's currently no traps in the game, that one doesn't really matter at the moment either. Then the final section here is the edit controls portion, and this is probably the most important one. So I use L2/LT to reset edits, RT/R2 to select edits, and then RB/R1 to confirm. But also keep in mind that since I use confirm edit on release, the only time I'm using RB is when I'm confirming a reset. So overall, I think these are pretty standard editing binds, and I would definitely recommend them to anyone. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. I want to know what values you personally use for look and ADS sensitivity as of right now, so let me know. Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.